Brothers and elders and sisters in Islam, when Asiya alayhi salatu wasalam was being dragged out of the house, the palace that she meticulously built, designed, decorated. A house is very dear to the living room, the flowers, the plants are very dear to the homemaker. We play hockey in my house and my wife has a plant, and every time the ball hits the plant as if like someone stole money from her. It's just a plant. But for her, it's very dear. And so this Asiya alayhi salam is being dragged out of that palace that it took Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam how many years to get in finally to give da'wah to Musa alayhi salam? It took them 2 years. They kept coming. And finally, a comedian who used to make Fir'aun laugh told him, should I tell you the greatest joke of the day? He said, yes, tell me the greatest joke of the day. He said, the greatest joke of the day is that there are 2 people at the door who are saying that they have a Lord other than you. And that's how they, closer. They are saying that they have a Lord other than you. So that's how they came in. Asiya alayhi salam is being dragged out of this palace, and she's now being taken to this mountaintop to be killed, martyred in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fir'aun decides to make her a lesson for everybody else. Because if this is what's going to happen to somebody in my house, then imagine what I'm going to do to you guys. So first he puts her on a plank of wood and pegs her limbs to the plank of wood. That's why, according to Imam Razi, وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ, which has many tafsirs, one of the reasons why it's called Awtad, Fir'aun, the one of Watad. Watad is a peg. The reason why Allah refers to him as Watad, many different reasons, but one of them is because he was the first one to persecute and punish people by pegging their bodies onto wood. So he pegs her body on a plank of wood. Very, very painful. As she's going through this pain, she makes a dua in the middle of the pain. This will give us perspective on how the pain and suffering of the people in Gaza. A person loses a job and loses sleep. A person gets into a small, disagreement with their spouse and they become restless. The thought that there is a recession and there's job cuts at GM, I'm from Michigan, it brings people in the masjid and makes them restless. They haven't even lost their job yet. And these are people who are burying their own children with their hands. These are people who are seeing this all around them. I remember when my brother, Abdul Rahim, rahmatullah alayhi, my youngest brother, he was 22 years old. He passed away as a shaheed, just teaching Quran in our school. He was leaving and someone came on the other side of the road and ran into him, and he passed away immediately 3 years ago. I remember the first person who told my father that your son has passed away, his words were, and he was from Palestine, and that's why he could say something like that, because he was from Gaza. He says, Dr. Khan, I'm not sure if I should give you aza or congratulate you. Nu'azik am nuhannik. Should I congratulate you or should I give you condolences? Or I'll just do both. You're the father of a shaheed. It changes everything, the way you look at things. It changes everything. Today, that's what I want to talk to us all about. Myopia is a disease in which you can see something that's in front of you very clearly, but something at a far distance you can't see. And that's why you wear glasses, because you can't see it far away. There's also something called spiritual myopia. What you see in front of you, you can see, but something at a little distance, you become blinded, or it's hard to see. Akhirah is not that far away. The reward is not that. You're standing next to a grave. What you can see is the dirt. That's what you can see, but that's nearsightedness. Under the dirt is a garden of Jannah. And we believe that. We believe that. Under that dirt, for a person who's a believer, is a garden of Jannah. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, every child of his would pass away. Someone loses one son. My mom lost one son. She has 4 other sons. They cannot live a normal life anymore. Doesn't matter how righteous you are. They always remember the son. Abu Dhar al-Ghifari lost one son, one daughter, one after the other. Someone comes to him and says, how do you cope with it? How are you okay with this? How do you keep living? He says, Alhamdulillah alladhi ya'khuduhum fi dar al-fana wa yaddakhiruhum fi dar al-baqa. Myopia. He never suffered from myopia, spiritual myopia. He says, all praises to Allah, the one who takes them from me in this temporary world and preserves them, my children, for me in the everlasting world. Imam Masruq rahmatullah alayhi was basically, metaphorically, on a hospital bed in the last moments of his life. He was at home. And when someone's in the hospital, there's a disease, someone's sick, it is unethical, even if it's on stage 4, someone's on stage 4 cancer, to basically, I always suffer from this problem. I had, unfortunately, a few friends of mine who passed away after my brother passed away, and they're stage 4, they're about to leave this world. In my mind, I want to go up to them and tell them that, when you meet my brother, say my salam to him. That's what I want to say to them. But you can't say that. You say, may Allah give you shifa. Allah will give you strength. And then they pass away a couple days later. So you always make that dua, Allah make you better. And in our mind, better means come back home. Right? It comes, come back home, you live normal life. So someone comes to Imam Masruq and he says, Ahsan Allahu afiyataka ya Aba Abdullah. May Allah make you better. He said, Al-ilhaqu biman yurja afuhu khayrun min al-baqa'i ma'a man la yuman sharruhu. Me meeting Allah, who I am extremely confident of His mercy and forgiveness. Extremely confident. Right? Like how the Salaf al-Salihin used to make dua and speak to Allah. لَإِن طَالَبْتَنِي بِذُنُوبِي لَأُطَالِبَنَّكَ بِعَفْوِكَ. This is their dua. Oh Allah, they had a friendly relationship with Allah, the way they spoke to Him. Oh Allah, if you present my sins to me, I'll open the whole Quran and present your forgiveness. Look where you say you're going to forgive everyone. وَلَإِن طَالَبْتَنِي بِتَوْبَتِي لَأُطَالِبَنَّكَ بِسَخَائِقِ. If you say, oh well, I said I'll forgive those who do tawbah, I will present to you your generosity. You're so generous, Allah. إِنَّ الْكَرِيمِ إِذَا قَدَرْ عَفَاهَا. Generous always gives more. It doesn't look for exactly, if I'm benefiting, you're benefiting. I'll present to you your generosity. You're the most generous being. So why do you need my tawbah? And then he says, oh Allah, this is a dua of the Salaf the whole night. وَلَئِنْ أَدْخَلْتَنِيَ النَّارِ لَأُخْبِرَنَّ أَهْلَ النَّارِ أَنِّي أُحِبُّكَ. He said, oh Allah, if you decide to punish me and throw me in the fire of Jahannam, I'm going to tell everybody there I love Allah. I believe that's our sentiments too. I believe every single person sitting here, doesn't matter if we obey Allah, we miss Salah, we pray Salah, we read Quran. At the end of the day, at the core, I remember I was a child and as Sheikh Hussam's father, Sheikh Musa, he mentioned this. I was a kid, I was 9, 10 years old. He mentioned this. Maybe he forgot he would mention this. He mentioned a statement of Sheikh Kishk rahmatullah alayh. He said that he once said in his talk that it doesn't matter how bad the Muslims of Egypt are, even if they were sitting in a bar. He gave an example. And may Allah forgive me if I'm misquoting it. If they were sitting in a bar and committing a sin, if someone walked into the bar and said something about the Prophet of Allah, they would stop and they would go after him. How dare you? That's their level of iman. If there were someone to come and say something about the Quran, what? But they're committing sins at the same time. But that's the level that's still there. It needs to be stirred up a bit. So this is the conversation. So this idea of coming back, he says, Al-ilhaq biman yurja afuhu. Meeting Allah, who I'm extremely confident that He'll forgive me, is better than me going back home and always looking over my shoulder that who's the next person who's going to backbite about me? Who's the next person who's going to make me suffer? What's the next person who's going to make... No, it's better I meet Allah. So here's Asiya alayhi salam pegged to the plank of wood. At this point, she makes a dua. Because she never suffered from myopia. Because in front of her was a plank of wood, the pain she could very well feel. And she knew she was going to get thrown off this cliff of this mountain. She says, رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. And the word choice is beautiful. She could have just said, رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. She could have said, oh Allah, just give me Jannah. Oh Allah, give me a palace in Jannah. There's no taqdeem and ta'khir which is coincidental in the Quran. If some word comes first and something comes second, it's not a coincidence, kalam Allah. There's a reason why it comes first, there's a reason why it comes second. رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. Oh Allah, build for me near you a house in Jannah. Because beyond this pain, she could see that there is a palace, not just waiting for her in the middle of Jannah somewhere, but next to Allah. And I'll give you an example of this. You go for Umrah, and how did she react? You go to Umrah, everybody gets hotel cards, they're frustrated, put their ihram on, waiting in the lobby. They give you the hotel cards. I took my family for the first time last year. And right when you get the hotel cards, everyone goes in the same hotel to different rooms. One of the first things you do in the hotel is remove the curtains to see the view. Some people get Makkah view. All right, they get mad at the travel agent. Oh, I got a Makkah view. MashaAllah, it's still Makkah. It's a beautiful city. Some people get partial Haram view. Some people get full Haram view, partial Kaaba view. Some people get the full Kaaba view. The expression on the face of the one who gets the full Kaaba view is priceless. Huge smile. Just take that as an example, and that was the expression on the face of Asiya, alayhi salatu wasalam. Not because she saw her house, but she saw the view from the window of her house. And that was next to Allah. And so she smiled. Fir'aun says, look at this crazy woman. نُعَذِّبْهَا وَهِيَ تَضْحَكُ. We're punishing her, but she's smiling. Like the children of Gaza. There's no loss. It's only a victory. This is a taste of victory now and a victory forever and not hereafter. There's a person who believes in Allah, there is no such thing as loss. If it's in the sake of Allah, path of Allah. It's about are we fortunate enough to be among those people? Are we fortunate among to make dua for those people? But because this is the reality of life. So she sees the view next to Allah and she smiles. Somebody was asked, أخبرني بشيء يرغبني إلى الجنة. Tell me something that, this is what the Salaf al-Salihin. So tell me something that will motivate me, all of us, motivate me to get to Jannah. I want to be motivated so I can get to Jannah. This is something that people of Gaza are thinking all the time. It's not just about getting to Aqsa, liberating it, but at the end of the day, it's much more than that. It's way beyond that. So the answer was 3 words. And I'll conclude with this. The answer was 3 words. And that's all this person needed to hear, and I think that's all we need to hear. The answer was, Fiha Rasulullah. You want to know about Jannah? The Prophet of Allah is there. That's it. We were not chosen to even be a cloud over his head, a dirt under his feet, the spider that protected him, the tree that shaded him, a sahabi at his time. We weren't fortunate enough. Allah chose for us to be born at this era. And if we want to see the Prophet again, we want to see him, we want to be with him, the only way to see him is to be with him in Jannah. Because that's where he is. When my brother passed away, there's one youngster who doesn't pray salah. He was in our school for 2 or 3 years, not a very righteous child at that time. He couldn't last there. And you could tell he's like, a little bit slang. He's from the hood. I love him so much. He was my brother's friend. He came to my brother's grave, and for the first time, he put this perspective in my mind. He said, he looked at my brother's grave. He didn't even know what dua to make. He said, Jannah just got personal. Jannah just got personal. Because now, if you want to be with your friend again, you got to get there. Otherwise, you can't get there. You're never going to meet your friend again. It's personal. For Sahaba, it was personal. That's why Umar ibn Khattab, whenever Allah was told, why don't you just wear some better clothes? Why don't you just eat a little bit better? Why don't you just make your house, all these things which are jaiz, permissible? He says, well, but I saw the Prophet a certain way. And I'm afraid if I do anything different, I will never see him again. I'm afraid. Because I heard his wife telling me that the Prophet ﷺ said, there are people who are seeing me, are with me today, but they will never see me in akhirah. I'm afraid I'm one of them. Even though the wife told him, you're not. But still, that's their motivation. So brothers and sisters in Islam, for us, it's way beyond that. Taking out time for salah, don't look at it nearsighted. If I take out half an hour, 1 hour, the masjid's 15 minutes away. But if you look at it with the sight of iman, that this مَا عِنْدَكُمْ يَنْفَدُ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ بَاقٍ. You've deposited this 20, 30 minutes in the bank of Allah, which will always increase and never decrease. If you look at a child passing away, the dua is, إِنَّ لِلَّهِ مَا أَخَذَ وَلَهُ مَا أَعْطَى. All along, he belonged to Allah. He or she was just there with you temporarily. It always belonged to Allah. When the Prophet ﷺ comes back home and asks Aisha anha, how much of the meat of the animal remains? بَقِيَ مَا بَقِيَ مِنْهَا غَيْرُ كَتِفِهَا. She says, O Prophet of Allah, nothing remains except for the shoulder, everything I gave out. The Prophet of Allah ﷺ then clarified the stance on this, because what you see is not actually the reality. He says, بَقِيَ كُلُّهَا غَيْرُ كَتِفِهَا. Everything you gave actually remains, and what you have, you lost. That's what remains. Think about that. So when someone is giving a sadaqah or charity, it's not that you're doing anyone a favor. And I'll conclude with this. Do you know the sunnah? May Allah bless Shaykh, he didn't take my hadiyah. We know the dua, the hadith. Al-yad al-ulya khayrun min al-yad al-sufla. The upper hand is better than the lower hand. Metaphoric is the upper hand is the giving hand, and the lower hand is the receiving hand. The sunnah of giving is with the lower hand. So it automatically, now the one who's giving is giving with the lower hand, and the one who's taking is taking with the upper hand. But the hadith says the one who gives, which is the upper hand. Do you know why? Because even in the gesture of the Prophet ﷺ, there was this hidden message that the person taking is doing me a favor. I'm not doing him a favor. How am I doing him a favor? Allah blessed me with some ni'mah, resources, health, time, money, whatever it is. And Allah allowed me, of all the people in the world, He didn't need me for this, and gave me this opportunity to do sajda in front of Him, to pray in front of Him, to call His name, to believe in Him, to give something. So then He's the one that deserves the credit. Thank you. Just in the gesture of the way you give. If we put this angle on and just wash, clean the lens a bit, then sacrificing, giving, generous, spending, praying becomes easier. Because we're human beings, we always are motivated by that which benefits. We're always motivated by discounts. We're always motivated by the better deal. And brothers and sisters, the better deal is the deal with Allah. Always. May Allah make us among those who act upon whatever was said and bring into our lives. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah.